Hi, I'm here to talk about the Crow remake starring Bill Skarsgård and Danny Houston. But before I get into that, I want to talk about the original Crow film that came out in 1994. You probably know I reviewed it last week. And I believe, even for the sequels that follow, it's very hard to fill in Brandon Lee's shoes because he was so iconic in the role. Sadly, it was his last role because he was tragically killed on set. And the main reason why I think he's so good in the role because he's a big fan of the comic book, and it really shows in his performance. He really gets the character. He understands what the character's feeling and what he has to do. And Brandon Lee displays that quite perfectly on film. And I didn't really like The Crow when I first saw it. I like it better now than I did then, but I guess at the time I didn't get what it was trying to do, but I get it better now. And like I said in my review, because Brandon Lee was killed on set, I was even shocked. I was pretty sure the movie wouldn't even see the light of day. But surprisingly they did because they found a way to work around the Brandon Lee's death. I mean, they used a body double for certain scenes because, like I said, in certain scenes you could say it's Brandon, not Brandon. And sequels did follow. Now, yeah, it makes sense. The Crow just would have went after other people who suffered an injustice, not just Eric Draven, of course. And The Crow City of Angels, I saw a little bit of it, and I don't think I wanted to see any more because of. Now, I've got nothing against Vincent Perez. I think he's a great actor and all that stuff, but he was just so annoyingly over the top in this role. I mean, it's just the way he just overplays it. It's just annoying. It made me miss Brandon Lee's subtleness. I mean, he was just annoying and over the top, and I don't really blame him because he was trying so hard to do a good job, but I'm not even sure he was even familiar with this concept as familiar with as Brandon Lee was. I really do. And a little bit of trivia I didn't actually know about. Iggy Pop, plays a main villain in The Crow City of Angels, was the first choice for Fun Boy. The writer of the Crow comic book wrote the role of Fun Boy because he inspired off of Iggy Pop. But Iggy Pop was unavailable, so they went with Michael Massey. And so Iggy Pop plays a similar character in The Crow City of Angels. Now, The Crow Salvation, starring Eric Mabius and Kirsten Dunst, Fred Ward, and William Atherton. I was pretty sure it was going to be a bad cash grab. I mean, after City of Angels, I had I had no hope. And surprisingly, I was wrong. No, I'm not saying it's nowhere. It doesn't top the original film. No, that's a tough act to follow. But I really surprisingly liked the Crow Salvation. It wasn't over the top, and Eric Mabius going into this, he knew he wasn't going to be as good as Brandon Lee. Of course, he knew that was going to be a tough act to follow. But he does play the role to the best of his advantage. He doesn't go over the top like Perez did, and he plays it with sort of an interesting coolness to it. And I like the idea that it's similar, but in some ways it's different. I mean, it's about tragic love, but this time it's different because his girlfriend gets killed, but he doesn't. No, he gets executed because he gets convicted of a murder. He gets framed, and this Crow is not much like. It's also an avenging the death of a loved one, but also trying to get to the bottom of why she was killed. Eric Mabius was good. Kirsten Dunst, who I didn't think of as much of an actress, but she surprised me how good she was in her role as the victim's sister. Well, his girlfriend's sister, and she surprised me how good she was. Fred Ward, who, the late great Fred Ward, great actor. He was just so great at being despisable, and he's a great villain and all that stuff. He really, I mean, he was really good. William Atherton was okay as Dunst's father, and the victim and the father of the murdered victim was good too. And yeah, I'm not saying it wasn't great like the original, but it was good in its own right. Oh, one more thing I gotta point out. Surprisingly, you know how this time the crow face that he has is not from makeup. It's from the scar after he gets electrocuted. It's a scar on his face. So that's an interesting twist to it. And 5 years later, we got The Crow, Wicked Prayer, starring Edward Furlong, Tara Reid, and David Boreanaz. Now, I give that movie credit for trying to be different, but it ultimately goes in camp territory. I mean, like Sharknado-like territory. It's like the filmmakers knew this and they just said, screw it. They went, I'll screw it. That's what I feel they went. I'm not saying Edward Furlong's a terrible actor, but he's off camera trying to play the role the way Brandon Lee would have played it. I wonder if he was off camera before he went into a scene. He's like, now how would Brandon say this line? That's pretty much how his performance went. Tara Reid is just, well, she's just Tara Reid. David Boreanaz as the main villain. I think David Boreanaz is a good actor, but for his performance here, he looks like he drank a whole keg of Red Bull just to get that wound up feeling, like sort of feeling. Danny Trejo was pretty decent, and I also admire the way they just try to take a different setting, not a big city, but a more like a Western like look to it. So that was a good twist. But other than that, it was just I think towards the end of it all, as the movie goes on, it goes in real Sharknado-like territory. I don't know if that was accidental or on purpose. I don't know. Then there was The Crow, Stairway to Heaven. It was a TV series and starred Mark Dacascos as Eric Draven. I don't know how you could make a TV show out of this. I don't know. They were trying to turn him into a dark superhero-like thing. Well, he was in the comic, but he was only avenging the loved ones, his loved one. But I don't know how they could have made a TV show out of it. It only lasted one season. Even the creator of the comic said it seemed like a good idea, but there's only so much you could tell in a TV series. So he was right. And I'm going to say Mark Dacascos is a pretty good... He bears put the long black hair on. He does bear a good resemblance to Brandon Lee. Now, since we talked about the history of The Crow and its sequels and its one-season show, we're going to talk about the new Crow. And this is a remake. I'm surprised it's still not called a sequel because the sequels felt like remakes in their own right. But nonetheless, this is a remake. It's not trying to follow a similar pattern to the movie. Sometimes I'm wondering if it's going in John Wick-like territory. I mean, the original did go in that territory, but it didn't try to overdo it. I mean, I don't know. This film is just trying to overdo the action part. Bill Skarsgård, who I believe is a good actor. I mean, he proved it when he played Pennywise in the It movies. He's very creepy and unhinging. He's just scary, and you're just frightened by what he's going to do next. He played that so well in It, but here, I also admire the way they weren't trying to copy Brandon Lee's look. They were trying to make this Eric Draven his own thing. I mean, which I think is pretty cool. And yeah, I think they're just going in John Wick like territory. And Danny Houston is one of the bad guys. if there's any actor out there who could play a despicable bad guy and do it and be really despicable, it's Danny Houston. He's proven that several times before he could play somebody pretty despicable. He's such a good actor. FDA Twigs is Shelley. All I know is she gets murdered and he's in the afterlife. I don't know if they're trying to do a more gothic approach or just trying to be more actioneer. I don't know. I'll still see the movie just to see if it could be as good as the original. Only time will tell. We gotta wait till August. That's been shopped around for years, and they were trying to do like a comic book like version. They were trying to make it look more like a comic book with Luke Evans playing Eric Draven, but that didn't pan out. Then they tried to go with Bradley Cooper. Didn't pan out. They also went with Jason Momoa, who I think could have been just as good, but that didn't work out either. So now it's finally happened with Bill Skarsgård as Eric Draven. Can he be as good? Well, we'll have to wait till August to find out. Okay. Sayonara.